Good evening everyone, this is another one of my bipolar movies, and this one I'm focusing particularly on mental health hospitals. Now before I went in one I had this kind of scary, strange image of one, maybe with lots of white walls and maybe metal doors and the odd padded cell, scary looking people walking around, being the staff, you know, and supposedly helping you, maybe being strapped down if you're mentally ill and getting electric shock treatment. Yeah, there's all sorts of stories you hear about the past and how terrible it used to be, and you know, it's not at all like reality. So I'll tell you a bit about what reality is like inside a mental health hospital. Where shall I start? So much to talk about. I suppose one of the things I remember quite strongly is the alarm bells. I think when I was in there it happened twice. I was in there for 3.5 weeks, and basically that part is probably one of the most disturbing bits. It's quite a loud noise and it's constant and it goes on and on and on. So when there's been an incident, I never knew really what the incident was, but suddenly it goes off. What happens is all the electronic doors, they just go, they all shut at the same time. So if you're in a corridor when that's happening, it's like, oh my god, what's going on, a big shut in. And I remember on one of the ones, I was in one of these kind of, the smaller lounge with some other girls, and they were like, oh, what should we do, what should we do? And we decided to all kind of congregate in the canteen area. And that's kind of where we felt safest until the issue had blown over. So that's not very nice at all. What else have I got written down? Oh yeah. So they hadn't thought at all about the garden space. So for me, the outdoors and gardens are really, really important spaces, and I feel kind of most myself when I'm outdoors. And they make me feel calm and more centred, especially at a time when you're totally not, you're the opposite. But basically it was this triangular garden. It was absolutely tiny. There was maybe space for, was there one bench? There was one bench, 2 doors, and this weird, very high grill type mesh wall, so people couldn't come in and we couldn't get out. And I think it was once an hour for about 15 minutes you were allowed out there. I think lunchtime, you know, maybe not because you were eating, so that kind of hour was not part of the rota. But in that time people would go and get their cigarettes and basically just smoke the whole time, and in that tiny space, I'm not a smoker, I couldn't get far enough away from anyone else to not smell the smoke. And when you're kind of manic or you're on new drugs and everything's weird and scary and strange around you and you don't know anyone, having that kind of smoke, just loads of it, because everyone was doing it. I was the only one that wasn't smoking. That was really intense, and it just made me want my own garden where no one smoked. But I didn't have that choice, so I just had to put up with it. I remember near the beginning, once I must have started to get over my olanzapine a bit more, I started doing headstands because I'm a bit of a yogi, and the staff were looking at me like, should we let her do that? Should we not let her do that? Okay, we'll just let her do it. She seems like she knows what she's doing, but yeah, I only did that once. Next step. So visitors, there were visitors times, I remember, and Robin, my husband, was able to stay there quite long periods of time, which was nice. And I remember he would just come into my private room and we'd just lie on the bed and chat together and, I don't know, hold his hand and just be close to him. And because, yeah, I needed to talk to him about what was going on and also ask him what was going on, because I was in this strange place. I didn't really quite understand how I got there, and so I'd ask him kind of loads of questions, you know, who's this, who's that, you know. And then my mum came in and she said, oh, you know, Jo, there's this bit of paper on the wall with a timetable of things that you can do while you're here. I hadn't noticed that and no one had told me. So there was an art session that I went to, and that was probably one of the best moments that I had in there. And I remember we were given newspapers and magazines, and I did this humongous collage with the lift up flaps, and I remember everything had a huge amount of meaning, and it was all about me and, you know, what was going on. Yeah, I just remember really getting into it and really enjoying it and really feeling a bit better afterwards, that I'd been able to express myself in this artistic way. And that was really great. And another session that I did specifically that I joined in was a cookery session, I think making biscuits or something. And I remember kind of analysing stuff quite a lot and then thinking, oh, should we be doing like that? And yeah, that was just the state I was in. But kind of other people and what was going on with them and how they were going about cooking, I don't know, that was a bit more stressful for me. It wasn't working too well. Anyway. Oh yeah, I remember I wasn't allowed my mobile phone at all, which was probably good on the one hand, because if I'd had it, I probably would have been on the phone to Robin too much, and then he wouldn't have had a break from me, because he really needed a break from me, some time off. But the other hand is that I was like, oh, but what if I really need to speak to him about something? You know, then that means I need to have a certain amount of money that goes in the slot, you know, 50p's, 20p's, do I have enough? What if I really want to talk to him for longer? Am I going to run out of money? At the time, that was like a stressful thing for me. And then it's in this kind of cold corridor, no seat or anything. It wasn't a very nice place to be, to sit and chat with your loved ones. That could have been better. Something else that I thought was interesting is that you get put with a nurse every day. So you might get given the same one or a different one. And there was a board just outside the canteen area where that one nurse would be given maybe 3 or 4 people to kind of watch out for in the day, and probably write up kind of evaluations and, you know, how we're doing and that kind of stuff. When I was in there was one guy that I found a little bit attractive, and he was quite young and good looking, and I remember thinking I was never put with him. And I think they did that on purpose. Not that I was being overtly silly with him or anything, I wasn't being over the top. Yeah, they I don't know what they thought about that, but yeah, that's obviously one of the way they run the place like that. And then as you go in, the main locking blue door, as I called it, the really heavy, sturdy one, there was a big kind of photograph area where everyone had their little picture, and I remember studying it really carefully, and the names, and it went with that face, and just seeing which person I recognised and who did what job, and had I met them yet, had I not met them yet, and I was trying to, you know, in my head I had all sorts of stories going on, and yeah. So as I went in the main door, I never went left, I always went right, and then it curved round the corner. And at the end there was kind of private bathrooms with a bath and sink and toilet, and there was like a shower area, the smaller lounge, the bigger lounge where more people congregated, and when people came to visit you they'd come to the bigger lounge. But coming to the smaller lounge, it had really nice big windows and lots of light coming in at certain times in the day. And I sat in there with some of the younger mental health patients and chatted about stuff and got to know them a little bit. And in my mind I thought, why are you here? You seem really normal. You seem much more normal than me. Why are you here? Everyone's got their own story and their own background. And one girl, she would be there nearly every year for a certain amount of time, so she was in there a lot. But some of the stuff she was saying, I was thinking, are you telling the truth? Are you not telling the truth? I don't know, it's hard to know really with some people. But one of the girls was reading this book all about mindfulness by Mark Williams, and it had this kind of turquoise cover, and it looked kind of interesting, and because I was into yoga anyway, I spoke to her about it. And then we worked out, or maybe she told me, that he was actually a professor in the next door building. And I was like, ooh, this could be interesting. What could I do with mindfulness relating to him, or when I get out of here, to maybe help me? And so in my mind I was like, right, I'm going to talk to that Mark Williams. I never actually did speak to him, but I did go on a mindfulness course that he had set up himself. And that's partly what he talks about in the book. So I'll do another video especially about mindfulness, because that was an amazing experience. Let's see where we'll move on to next. All sorts. Oh yeah. I remember at the time I was really into knitting, and I'd created this fabulous stitch while I was on holiday just before I went manic psychotic. And I remember speaking to these French people about this knitting stitch I was trying to create. And but as soon as I got high and I was in the hospital, I couldn't knit, I couldn't crochet, I couldn't do anything that was really small and really focused. It was like this was too close, and I couldn't, my brain was just working so fast, and it was just almost too much information, and for me that was really hard not to knit. And it's the same when it came to reading. So I'd have the book in front of me, and if the words were really small, I just couldn't focus on it, and I couldn't take in like a single word, I couldn't take in a sentence, and so reading was impossible. And I remember my mum brought in a magazine, kind of a ladies' magazine with pictures and stuff, which I kind of was able to soak in the images, but again I couldn't read the text. And then she said she brought me in one of my daughter's reading books. So it was for like an age 3 child with really big words, and I was actually able to just about digest that. So that was quite amusing. I remember thinking to myself, oh my god, an adult reading a child's book, because that's all I can do right now. But it just kind of shows you, you know, what was going on up here and how difficult it was to actually do normal everyday tasks. Yeah, a bit later on down the line, I remember my mum brought in some kind of oily bath scent stuff that was a lavender smell, and I remember thinking to myself, right, I'm going to have a bath. So I kind of got everything ready and set myself up and poured the water and everything and got the temperature just right and locked the door. And going into this room that was very, very white, with this deep water, I remember feeling extremely vulnerable, and it also felt extremely strange, just because you know it's not your own surroundings, it's not your home, and it's just really weird having a bath in a strange place with kind of the odd strange noise outside, with other people with mental health problems, you know, maybe doing a bit of screeching or crying or calling out or singing, or, you know, they do all sorts of things. Yeah, so that was a bit strange. I don't really know if I enjoyed it, but I certainly felt nice and clean and quite hot afterwards, so that's kind of a good thing. It's cleansing and it's good for your energies and all that. Medication time. So people had different medication times. I can't really remember what time mine was, but possibly the morning. I remember going in, it's a separate room right near the canteen, and there was always kind of 2 people in there, and they'd kind of read your chart and check how much you were taking of different stuff. And I remember being weighed, I remember having my blood pressure taken and being kind of connected up so they could take your heart rate and things, and make sure that you were actually swallowing your medication. And I remember at one point I went in and I was trying to see if I could affect my heart rate, change the beats of my heart. by the way I was breathing. So I remember looking, because I could see this thing beeping and the little numbers of how many beats per minute kind of thing. And I was like slowing down my breathing and trying to be really calm. And I swear, I don't know if I was imagining it, I probably was, but I swear that I'd slowed it down quite a lot. And I just remember thinking, wow, aren't I really amazing that I can slow my heart rate down that much? And I just thought I was so great. Anything to keep you amused in this strange place. So yeah, the green room, that's before you actually enter into the blue door, where you get locked away. So I think before that, before the green room, I'll talk about the locked away. So for example, children, they can't come in to the mental hospital. It's kind of a bit of a dangerous place really for kids, because one woman was like going around pulling someone else's hair, and I think that's why one of the alarms went off. So she literally just went up to someone and pulled their hair and wouldn't stop pulling their hair. And that's really quite scary and horrible. Painful too for that person, I felt sorry for them. So yeah, when I was well enough, and it took quite a while for me to be able to actually leave the blue door and go out with my husband or my mum or whatever and go and actually spend a little bit of time with Heidi. And there was a nearby very uneventful cafe. I think I was able to get a hot chocolate there. And we just kind of, I remember sat in this kind of slightly conservatory-like place, and she probably just kind of looked at me like, what's going on, mummy? Why aren't I spending any time with you? Why aren't I living with you at the moment? Why can't I go behind that blue door? She asked that question. Why are you behind the blue door? She didn't know what was going on, poor thing. And it did feel very strange for me not just spending time with her whenever I wanted to. So when I came out, that was just really lovely to be able to hold her whenever I wanted to, and kind of readjust to family life, which took a long time. So that was a bit weird, very weird. Yeah, so, and then being let out on walks on my own, so without a nurse or without family members. It took much longer for them to kind of allow me, for me to get to the right stage, and I actually had to speak to the psychotherapist, and he had to give me the all clear, the okay to go out the door, without any help or assistance, because I don't know, maybe I'd run off or something, or do myself harm. I don't know, they, you know, they're trained professionals, they know what they're doing. But I remember just going for walks in the grounds with the nice mature trees and the lovely soft grass, and just kind of sitting out there for a bit, and that felt really nice. And I remember looking in the window at other people's rooms that I hadn't been in the mental hospital, and the windows only opened about 1.5 inches. So you get a tiny bit of fresh air. So I remember you can kind of at the window. Yeah, it did feel a bit like a prison at times, but it was a kind of necessary prison at the same time. And I don't think there's much more to say. Oh, the green room! We haven't done the green room. Okay, so the green room is where you go if you haven't got a room yet. And my mum, because it was a very last minute getting me into the mental hospital, it was going to be the police taking me there because I was causing havoc in the local town, in the local doctor's surgery. And my mum was like, no, I don't want my daughter to go into the mental hospital via a police car. So she quickly got me into her little Mini and off we went. And on the way she was calling her doctor friend who lives up north, and she was like, can you get my daughter in? Can you get my daughter in to the Warnford Hospital in Oxford, which is known to be a better one than the one just nearby, which I think is mixed. The one I went to was all women. And when Mum was on her speakerphone, when she was talking to Jill, I actually thought she was speaking to Barack Obama. I was thinking all sorts of things at that time. And yeah, it took me a while to clean the room and move it around and get someone out. And so I was waiting outside for a while, quite a long time with Mum and Robin, and then we were told to come into the green room, and it just seemed to take forever and ever and ever. And I was, you know, the most psychotic and high that I could be, because, you know, it'd been a while that I was in this state, and I was literally just going round and round and round. I was almost running the speed I was walking. I was just frenetically feeling totally kind of hemmed in, and just so stuck in my body. And I kept looking out the window. I was like, when's the helicopter going to come down? When is Barack Obama going to come here so I can speak to him about what is wrong with this world and what is wrong with this planet? Because I've got the answer. I know what needs to happen. And I was thinking in my head, if he's not going to come to me, then I'm going to go to him, and I'm going to swim across the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm going to go to the White House, and I'm going to talk to him. So that didn't happen either. I remember my mum went to go and get me some food, or Robin did, and there was just this little plastic packet of salady, foody type stuff, and I just literally damned it. It's like my body was using up so much, so many calories and so much energy that I just kind of gobbled it like crazy. And the same with drink. I was just drinking, just kind of trying to flush away all this stuff. I just wanted to get rid of everything that was in my brain. It was all just so speedy. And I obviously just needed that food and needed that water, and, you know, my body just wasn't functioning as it should in, you know, in any way, shape or form. So yeah, that's bipolar and mental health illnesses within a mental hospital, and what it was like for me. And if you thought that was interesting in any way, shape or form, and you'd like to hear more, I'm going to do more videos, and I've already done quite a few. So click the subscribe button and have a look at my other pop-ups and see if there's something else that you'd like to watch. Thank you very much, and good night.